podcast.
Hi, I'm Kaylee. Thank you for tuning into The Intentional Disc Golfer, the only podcast dedicated to helping you become the player you want to be. It is our mission to explore the physical and mental aspects of disc golf performance, to deepen your understanding of the game, and to help you reach your potential. Now, to introduce your hosts, Jenny and Brandon.
Well, thank you once again for tuning in to this episode of The Intentional Disc Golfer. I'm Brandon.
I'm Jenny.
And we are here with our very special guest today.
Hi, I'm their son, James.
Yes, James is on board for this episode. So if you appreciate us, like what you hear, please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends all about us. We are available on every major podcast platform. You can also find us on Facebook at Saprinsky Disc Golf. That is CZUPRYNSKI Disc Golf. So for this episode, we asked the question, what is the secret of the pros? How do they achieve incredible results? And how can you achieve incredible results? And also, how could you avoid the pitfalls that will stunt your growth? We're going to find out more after this message. Hey, Washington. Summer's right around the corner, and you know what that means. It's construction season. Whether you need a repair or remodel for that outdoor living space, or hey, maybe even your indoor living space, give BC Construction a call, 360-271-3441, or email at info@bcconstructionnw.com. Proud sponsor of the Intentional Disc Golfer podcast. All right, and we'd like to quickly remind you that the Intentional Disc Golfer is made possible through listeners like you. So if you'd like a support opportunity, maybe looking for a sponsorship on the show, or maybe like to come in for an interview and share your thoughts, please get a hold of us at theintentionaldiscgolfer@gmail.com. That is theintentionaldiscgolfer@gmail.com. So this episode, we are talking today about deliberate practice as promised. James, when I talk to you and I say deliberate practice, what does that mean for you?
Like, just going outside and, wait, what is the main?
Deliberate practice. So,
Like practicing all the time.
practicing all the time.
Going to each blue mark we have outside and like just throwing 10 discs from each of those, I guess.
So, would you say that maybe deliberate practice is different than just going out there and going through the motions?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
I think we want to clarify that blue marks are the marks around our putting basket outside. So they're markers at different feet, like 20, 25, 30 feet away from the basket.
Yeah, in our practice area at our house here, we have set up the little tassels that they use to mark the different circles. And so we have one circle set up at 20 feet, and we have another circle set up at what circle one would actually be. And that gives us a really good kind of indication of where to practice our putting and things from. So in the last episode, we talked about the book Peak from Anders Ericsson, the psychologist from Florida State University. And he characterized deliberate practice as this: the individualized training activities specifically designed by a coach or a teacher to improve specific aspects of an individual's performance through repetition and successive refinement. And as it just so happens, Jenny happens to be a master teacher. So who better to talk about deliberate practice than a master teacher? So Jenny, let's break this down. If I were going to try to figure out an individualized training area, where would I start? What would I do?
Well, in order to come up with an individualized training area, you kind of have to break down what it is you're studying in the first place. So let's say disc golf. There's a lot of different parts with disc golf. There's your driving, there's your mid-range, there's your scramble, there's your putting. So you have to be able to break down whatever it is that you're working on first in order to be able to decide what you want to focus on. Once you choose an area to focus on, then you can break that down even further and come up with data points. So for example, if we were to talk putting, we could look at our stance. We could look at the way that we throw the disc. We can look at the way that we hold the disc when we throw the disc. We can look at the disc itself. We can look at the basket. We can look at the area of the basket. We can see which side of the basket we tend to miss the most. So all of these things could be quantifiable, and we could be able to come up with some data.
And for our listeners out there that don't know what that word means, what does quantifiable mean?
It means taking something and make it into a quantity, so a numerical amount.
So a number that can be measured?
Yeah, so either things either need to be quantitatively or qualitatively collected. And qualities would be like, if I said James's sweatshirt is orange, that would be a quality thing. What do you think, James? Orange?
Yes, orange is superior to all other colors.
Are
Well-
your discs
well said.
are your discs orange?
Yes, in fact, they are.
Yeah.
At least my good ones.
Or you heard it here first, folks. Orange discs fly better.
They do.
You were talking about quantitative data points. Okay, so how would I go about collecting some of those things? Like, just give me a real brief example of something that you could measure in your game.
I don't know. There's a lot. It's hard to come up with just a quick example. I mean, I was just doing putting leagues, so we'll just stick with putting. And it could be how many discs I was able to get in the basket at the different feet, different distance from the basket.
And
Trying to maintain everything else the same.
And James, how many was that?
22 in total.
Out of
300.
300.
Because I did my math wrong, but same difference. That's how good you are.
22 out of
Aw,
300, huh?
22 out of 300.
Uh-huh.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was 50 putts.
It's 50 putts. So 22 out of 50, we can divide that out and come up with a
Less than 50%.
with a percentage.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So that would be an example of like a data point, a data queue in order to, try to identify and prioritize and individualize training area.
Right. And when we talk about coming up with like our listeners, not viewers, our listeners out there thinking of, oh, she's going out there and doing some practice and she's got things set up at 5 foot increments from 10 foot to 30. She's doing 10 putts at each one, beautiful day, flat, perfect. No, it started raining. Like I had a child sitting on a hill yelling out, "Yay, you made it to 19." And then I had the dog out there. I had Brandon was out there. And then the thing I didn't consider is that we have these French doors and the basket was I was looking through the French doors and one of the kids kept walking back and forth through the French doors. And it was,
True story.
they're giggling over there now.
I know, they're giggling. You can hear them in the background.
They were very distracting. It was not something I had considered. So those would be qualitative data points
Okay.
that affect my quantitative data points.
Okay. Can feelings or the way that you feel give you feedback and provide you with some individualized areas that you need to concentrate on?
Only if you're able to listen to them. No, not what I meant. Like, no, like I was listening to, what was it? The Open is the one that they just had?
The one in Austin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They were talking about all the mental struggles with the professional disc golfers and what they have to deal with. And so it wasn't much of a comment. However, it is a huge point of it.
Well, I think that's interesting because you saw like Evelina last week at Waco, where she 6-putted that one thing, and then she came back the next day and did like a 4-putt type of deal. And that at that level, that has to be all psychological.
Could be.
What do you think, James?
I don't know. Like, I think since she did like 2 better, then she probably either practiced more or had a better mindset. Like, I'm going to do this and not get 6, but 4 is okay.
4 is okay. If anything's better than 6.
Yes.
Yeah, but she probably felt really bad about it, right?
Probably.
How about last night when we went disc golfing?
What about it?
Well, remember watching me, and there was one that I got like 20 on, something like that.
You can't get over 10.
There was that number 9, I think, of Battle Point, where I threw, and then I threw again, and someone yelled "Mom" in the middle of my throw, and then I waited a long time for a bunch of throws, and then I like 3 or 4 putted. Like, what do you think was going through my head at that point?
All of the above.
All of the above?
Above.
So do you think that the mental state, what do you think caused me to feel that way?
I think you felt sad because, like, in the next round that we did, you got really mad because you were doing, like, bad the first round. So I think that you got angry just because you weren't able to make it, like, on your first throw, on your first putt, anyways. But, yeah.
Do you think that's how the pros feel too?
Yes. Angry.
They get it.
Use real words.
They get it. Yeah. Angie. Angie. So like if you don't feel confident with something, like I'm not very confident with my driving, do you think that might tell me or give me some feedback that that's something I need to work on?
Yes.
All right. So you agree with that. So that would be an example of an emotional cue, is the things that make you feel uncomfortable and give you anxiety, or even the mental things that they make you angry or snap you out of your conversation or concentration. Excuse me, not conversation. That's what we're doing right here. We're having a conversation.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Mom agrees.
On what?
That we're having a conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
I think you touched on something here, is like the kid yelling "Mom" in the middle of the throw. I think that would be like a extrinsic cue in a way. That's kind of a reach.
Why?
Why?
Well, it's an extrinsic, like, oh my God, I hear someone yelling "Mom." It comes from external, so it's an extrinsic cue. However, when a child's yelling "Mom" to the mom, when the mom is doing something, like, that hits on an emotional level that I just can't quite
No, yeah,
Mom.
I'm off the mark. I get
do?
what I'm trying to say is, like, there's extrinsic cues that you can take from, the people around you and, like, the general atmosphere of, the card that you're on or who you're playing with, and if they're sighing and becoming negative and things of that nature,
Like when we let the kids all go play at the playground yesterday.
I had more fun doing that than disc golfing.
Don't you dare say that on this podcast.
Well, I just did.
So it was like hole 3 going back through a 9-hole course. And the kids were like, I'm over it. We've already finished. Why are we going back there? And he's like, okay, if you want to go play at the playground, go play at the playground. Whoever wants to finish, finish.
It's pouring outside.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's raining.
That
pretty
makes
good.
my emotional cues go low.
Yeah.
You have low emotions.
Low emotional cues.
I feel you when I've had to disc golf in that a couple times
Oh
recently.
yeah, out at White River. Yeah, that was wicked.
And the honeybee.
And, the honeybee wasn't too bad. Oh, I had an umbrella. Never mind.
I had to keep my snow pants on.
Rigged up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 30 degrees.
Do you agree, James?
Yes.
James agrees with everything. Yeah, disc golf is definitely a lesson in emotional regulation. That's for sure.
If you ever get mad, you just picture the person you hate. You just picture their face when you're driving and throw it as hard as you can right at their face.
Until you grip lock and hit somebody you care about.
No.
No.
What if that person you're disc golfing with is the person you hate?
Then
Like,
why would you
so-
take him disc golfing?
Because then you have a higher chance of hitting them and saying that it's on accident, even though you did it on purpose.
I was gonna say, is this like a boggart? Like you
God.
imagine the thing that scares you the most, and you're hitting it with your disc. Like,
Yes.
okay,
Okay. Well, moving on. We're still taking apart that statement laid out by Anders Ericsson about what is deliberate practice. And it says that it needs to be instituted by a coach or a teacher. Jenny, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it doesn't have to come from a coach or a teacher that is anything outside of, say, yourself. And that's what I'm hoping that we're going to work with here with the intentional disc golfer is realizing that you're your own teacher, you're your own coach, and that when you make that decision to get outside help, you're still trying to come up with ways to make yourself better.
With the intentional disc golfer, we're hoping to equip you with some tools to be your own coach and be a good one at that. What do you think makes a good coach? I mean, you say a coach can be anything. It can be yourself. It can be a book. It can be the TV, YouTube. I know disc golf's a big deal on YouTube.
Yeah, but when you do YouTube and you're watching something for disc golf, don't watch conflicting versions of like how to do it. Like, don't watch putting videos that like clash, because then it really confuses you with your mind of, oh, well, this guy said this and this guy said that, and it's really confusing.
So, like, one thing, somebody says do one thing, and then somebody else says do another thing.
Yeah.
What's up, James?
Like, I think that coaches, like, you don't always have to have a coach in general, because before you started coaching me, I threw like this weird way, but then I thought I was doing good until you told me that I wasn't doing very good and that I needed to change my stance. And it has really confused me. So I went from throwing sidearm to throwing backhand.
And I had noticed the other day when we were playing, those changes has added a lot of distance to your throw and more accuracy.
Yeah.
Even though it might feel uncomfortable at first. But that's what happens when you create bad habits, is that muscle memory kicks in, and then you start fighting against yourself. What do you think makes a good coach?
A human. They have to be like a human. Like, if you're getting coached how to play disc golf by a dog, the dog would just say fetch.
I don't know. There's some dogs out there that are pretty good.
Do they have the talking collar like Doug from Up?
Okay, so a coach needs to be human.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Are you sure that a coach needs to be human? Because, like, I can learn a lot from a tree.
Like what? How to stand still and get hit by discs?
Your own discs.
Yeah.
Does a coach necessarily have to be a human?
Yes.
I mean, can you learn things from other sources?
The internet.
Or?
I don't know. I don't think a coach has to be a person.
Yes.
How about a book?
Books are written by humans, and so are like internet videos. So therefore,
Not all of them. There's like Chat GTP. That's a computer.
Yes, but that computer was made by humans.
I've seen a video of a cat.
Playing disc golf?
Yes, but who is recording the cat?
The phone. Duh.
Yeah.
And who is holding the phone? A
Steve
human.
Jobs.
Oh my gosh.
So it has to be human.
The ghost of sea shops.
Humans are apex species. So it has to be human.
It has to be human.
Or sharks. I mean, sharks are cool. So are dinosaurs. Your coach could be a dinosaur.
Not a T-Rex. So the video I was
Yes.
watching, like, T-Rexes don't have big enough arms to be able to disc golf. Like, they cut off half
Yes, they
their
can.
arm. No,
They
they're
go-
not. T-Rexes cannot disc golf.
They throw like that one person.
I think a
who just
raptor.
kinda-
I really,
raptor
I
with its
really
claw.
think that a coach could be anything that you can learn from. You know, even if like you're out in the woods and like sometimes the course teaches me things, right?
But the course was created by humans.
The course is pretty much created by. I mean, somebody stuck a basket out there, but they're pretty much nature.
And a T-pad.
And the T-pad. Okay.
And the thing that shows you where to go. And other things. So really, humans are.
Moving on, dissecting that statement by Anders Ericsson even further, says that improve aspects of their performance through repetition and successive refinement. And this is something that where I like to get into because, through my athletic training and background, and also through the sports psychology thing. So you might ask yourself, why repetition? Why do the same thing over and over and over again, and it's boring, and I don't want to do it anymore? Why do that same thing over and over again? What do you think, James?
At least with me for disc golf, I have to do things over and over again because you guys tell me to.
But why?
Good answer.
But why? Why do you think that we're telling you to do that?
Because you want me to.
Why?
Because you want to get out of not doing chores.
Because I want to get out of not doing chores?
Yes.
Well, what about like your teacher? Like, why would you do the same math problem or type of math problem over and over and over and over again?
So you know how to do it.
So you know how to do it. And so what does that do for you in your brain?
Makes it wrinkly.
The brain is wrinkly. So I think what we're trying to get at is when you first learn a new task, like say your coach is out there and says, I want you to do this stance and change this balance point and shift your weight and et cetera, et cetera. At first glance, it feels uncomfortable. It doesn't feel right. And I think, James, you were saying something like that. And that's because that is still totally ingrained in your short access, short-term memory. That is your useful functioning memory that you use to remember, let's say, sets of numbers that you need to write down real quick. You use it and then it's gone. You forget it almost as soon as you remember it. Does that make sense? So the purpose of repetition is to take all that short-term information and those things that you just learned and move them actually into your long-term memory storage. And so they're in there and they're stored and not something that you will easily forget. And that's when you start to become more comfortable and it starts to become more fluid, like say with a walk-up or like a certain putting stroke or a sidearm throw, something that I'm struggling with right now. And after the phase of going through moving things into your long-term memory is moving those things into your primal memory, which is the muscle memory, the dinosaur brain, where you can just take whatever you're thinking, your brain just kind of takes over and it becomes automatic. And that's for any athlete and any practice schedule, that's ultimately what you're striving for, is to move all of that information, those habits, those movements, those feelings into your dinosaur brain so you can do them automatically. For example, when I'm out in tournaments, if I think too much about it and I get too much inside my head, I really do bad. I mean, I do bad anyway, but I do significantly better if I just stop thinking about it and stop caring so much and just play the game. And then at that point, my dinosaur brain takes over. I start hitting more lines. I start making more putts, and it becomes more automatic and more comfortable. And ultimately, I have more fun because I can concentrate on other things like, joking around or, congratulating the other players and being a positive influence on the card. You look like you want to say something. What's up?
I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Let me put this in terms of maybe something you would understand better, like video games. Like going through the Harry Potter game.
James shakes his head, yes.
So the Harry Potter game, you start with very basic steps, right?
Yeah.
Of learning how to walk, how to look around, things like that.
Yes.
Before you're able to unlock, say, flying with a broom.
I have unlocked that.
Yes, you have. However, it's teaching you through repetition at smaller increments, smaller steps to make you a successful video gamer.
So kind of like At least going off your example with the Hogwarts game, I always struggle, at least also in Pokemon, with like healing and protecting myself. And so it has really taught me how to like learn how to like I guess heal myself and protect myself better, I guess.
Yeah, those defensive strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you play the game, you get better at it. And as you progress in the game, you get better and better rewards, right?
Yeah.
Like better gear and better armor and stuff, better
Yeah.
spells.
Or it's like when I had you do the broom trials for me, I didn't learn how to do that. So now I have another one that I'm not going to be able to do until I have you do it for me because I don't have those skills. And that's why it's important that you do your own practice. You learn the material yourself, right? So that you can fly your own broom.
We've gone from disc golf to witchcraft, which is not too far of a reach, actually.
Because the trees always know how to walk around.
That's right. That's right. Set up the trail cam.
The trees walk around.
That's right. Speaking of trail cams, off topic, we had a cougar just recently in our backyard.
I guess there's also bobcats now.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
bobcats. Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
foxes.
Foxes. Yeah, but the cougar is kind of surprising. Like, I mean, kind of, but not really. They live around here, but
We've only had this is only our second one ever.
that was a big kitty
I've-
though.
Maybe for you guys, I've lived here my whole life. I've seen lots of cougars. Like,
Yeah, they're around.
if you hear something that sounds like a gunshot in the middle of the night, that's a cougar.
I've only
Really?
been here for 11 years.
I know. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Like, you guys are, like, yeah. Anyways.
Anyways,
Spent too much time talking about video games. They were calling James. So now we'd like to welcome Kaylee. Kaylee, say hi.
Hello.
yep.
Kaylee is now
kiddo-
joining us.
Yep, kiddo hot swap. Okay, so we were just talking about the purpose of repetition, moving the knowledge from the short-term functional memory to the long-term to the primal memory. And now let's talk about that successive refinement portion. And this is kind of where the coach comes in. One of the great aspects of having a coach is there's somebody that can observe you and troubleshoot for you. Now, Kaylee is with us, taking the spot of James.
Hi.
Does your coach do that for you when you do track or cross country? They give you little pointers and tips?
Yes, a lot. Especially like when I was doing the mile today. We had to run the mile, and as I was running past the coaches, they're giving me pointers of keep your arms straight and lift your knees.
Successive refinement, or a simpler way to put this, is troubleshooting. And so this kind of runs into using those cues and those different analytics that Jenny was talking about earlier, is that can give you some real good feedback and some real good information on how to troubleshoot certain areas of your game. You're shaking your head over there. Can what are you thinking?
Well, the one that was coming to mind, the one that sticks out to me when I was reading the book I read.
The book you read?
Yeah, I was reading the book I read. I'd have to go grab my Kindle. Anyways, the data book that I read about disc golf, he talks about, how does your, how often are you successful on your next throw if you spent time searching for a lost disc, whether it's yours or someone else's? And that's something that I've always thought of, especially over at Rain Shadow on that first one where I tend to go way down the hill off the left or the right, rarely ever in the middle, and it kind of sets the tone for the whole rest of the game for me.
That makes sense because you're taking a pause to find it.
Yeah, hole number 1 on Rain and Shadow. That is kind of a doozy to put on hole number 1, and I could see where that would set the tone for the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
I think it has for many of us.
It is. It has often set the tone for my game, I tell you.
Especially on tournaments because everyone's there watching you on that first hole and everyone's making comments.
Yeah,
About,
speaking of tournaments, Rippin' and the Roadies is coming up
Yep.
over at Rain Shadow. The Evergreen Women's Series. Shout out to the Evergreen Women's Series. If you're a woman disc golfer, get involved. So one ailment that affects athletes of all sorts, types, different sports and things is the plateau state. You start doing something and you see these, large gains, some people call it beginner's luck. And then you get into it and you just kind of get stuck in this middle area somewhere where you're really not learning, you're really not progressing. You just seems like you're going through the motions. And I learned this when I was going through personal training school is you have to know when to progress. And that's a really important thing to really have a firm understanding on. And probably, if not the most important, is knowing when to move on. And those data points and those different cues, the information that you take in, as well as the coach and the troubleshooting can help you with that and learn when to progress. Jenny, Kaylee, have you ever done the thing where it's you're doing it over and over and over. You feel like you're not learning anything. You feel like, and the goal is to just get real comfortable with it first before you move to the next thing.
Often.
I was going to say, like at school, when you feel like you're just doing busy work and they're having you fill out a piece of paper. Like
monotony, like boring monotony.
Yeah, I actually heard a really good quote today on that disc golf video I watched.
Yeah.
By, I think it's Philo.
Yeah.
Philo.
I always think of like the dough, like philo dough.
No, I think it's Philo.
Like spanakopita.
I can't say his last name. But he was saying, when you hit a plateau, you've stopped believing in yourself. And that's really what he thinks, is that you just need to believe in yourself when you hit those. That's
a really
plateaus.
interesting way of thinking about it.
He was also talking about how you need to learn to love the game even when you're doing a horrible job.
Well, it was like we were listening to the FPO down at Austin, and the two hot geese ladies, they were like, a bad day disc golfing is better than any day in the office.
That's pretty much what anyone says about fishing. I mean, that's what they say about whatever it is that they like.
The old fishing reference. So what I learned through personal training about plateau state is people often want to like master something before they move on. And there's a principle in the deliberate practice and moving on and progression that you have to move past something to master it. So in order to feel completely confident with a skill or something, you have to move on to an even more difficult skill. And then when you come back to it, you're even more proficient and more comfortable with performing whatever that is. And this is a page out of Jeff Bezos' book called The 80% Rule. Jeff Bezos is famously quoted for saying that you need to be able to make good decisions with 80% of the information. Well, it's the same with, we're talking about putting. Putting is an easy thing to pick on because it's the thing that you do the most of. It's the thing that everybody can get better at. And it really is one of the simplest parts of the game as well as the most difficult. So like if I'm practicing my putts from 10 feet away, I should be at 100%. But if I want to get comfortable doing my putts from 10 feet away, I need to move back to 15 feet and then go back to 10. And when I go back to the 10, if I can hit that 80% mark, it's time to move on. I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to be able to get 80% there, 80% proficiency in order to move on to the next point. And then that's how you're going to break that mold is you move on to the next point. So move back to like 20 feet. And then when you go back to 10-foot putting, that 10-foot putting is going to be 100%. If you want to get great at 20-foot putts, you sink 80% of them, move back to 25-foot putts. And then when you go back to 20-foot putts, you're going to be sinking that 80%. So it's keep that progression going and don't wait to be absolutely perfect at it before you move on to the next thing.
Well, that works for some things, maybe not all things. Because like I was thinking of like basketball. If you were to ask me to go do 3-point shots, not being able to make a layup with any sort of accuracy, like I wouldn't be able to.
Well, that's like two different disciplines though. A 3-point shot's way different than doing a layup. Well, it's a different skill set. That
was part of what I heard today was, you don't have someone go start doing 3 points until they're proficient at a layup and then the 10-foot and the 10 and 15. And then you move back to the free throw line and do the.
That's what I was saying too. is that you start small and snowball yourself up into something bigger and bigger and bigger. But then when you come back to the smaller point, that becomes easier. So like if you think like you can make 1,000 3-pointers, like you should be able to make a layup.
I guess it depends on how far you progress, because then what comes to mind for me is, Einstein couldn't tie his shoes.
Okay.
Like, and as a teacher thinking of students in math class, like there are a lot of middle schoolers, especially in America, that can't do basic math, and they're in the middle school classes. And so it's a debate on the appropriate way to teach them. Either keep waiting until they're able to master, and master is that 80% or greater, or let them continue to be below that 80% and hope that as they learn the higher levels of math, that some of this other stuff will start to catch on. So there's two different ways to look at it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like in math. If you want to learn division, you have to know multiplication and subtraction before you can start division. And if you don't know multiplication, then you can't really do a lot of math.
So what you're saying is you need to learn your basic arithmetic before you move into algebra, and then into graphing, and then into calculus. So there's a progression of things.
So Kaylee, what do you think that progression would be for disc golf?
You should start with a shorter putt. Get okay with that, and then go back like 5 or 10 feet, and then get okay with that, and then you'll be better with the putt you started at.
So you think putting is a good place to start that progression?
Yeah, because if you can putt, then you can start working on your long distance throws. Because I think putting is going to be one of the best things. Because I know that I've taken a bunch of throws that I could have gotten pars on, and by missing my putt 2 or 3 times, it's now up by it's now a +3 when it could have been a par.
Yeah. And so if we were to go back with the way that we started disc golfing with you guys, because I'm pretty sure we had a disc golf basket. We didn't really practice with it. We just went out and started
outside for half a year.
Yeah, we just went outside and started playing at the actual course. Do you think it would have been better had we started just with putting?
I think that new players should go to a course once or twice to get an idea of the game. And if you want to get more indulged in the game, then I think you should start practicing your putting.
Okay.
The game is won and lost within circle 1.
Exactly.
Is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
So within 10 meters of the basket.
Yep.
Another thing about knowing when to progress and how to progress is making sure that you have clear and defined goals. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners out there have heard of the acronym, the SMART goals. Jenny, what's the SMART stand for? Or do you remember, Kaylee, what SMART goals are?
Specific, measurable, attainable.
Realistic.
There's a couple different ones for R, so I was debating which ones to go for.
I think realistic is a good one.
Realistic and time bound.
Yep.
But there's usually some different ones for R.
Okay.
Like relatable is one, realistic.
Responsible. No, literally I saw one at my school and it said responsible on there. Because if your goal is motorbiking, that's not really responsible if you're 6.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, and so getting into the SMART goals, I actually subscribe more to the smarter goal model, and we'll do a whole episode doing a deep dive on how to set SMART goals and smarter goals and all that type of thing.
Can I make I need to make a joke though that you like smarter goals? except you're always telling me to keep it simple, stupid.
Smarter. Well, the difference.
So you're going for the longer goals.
The longer goal, because there's
What are the E and R?
the E and R. Well, so what I measure it as is specific, measurable, accountable, realistic, and time bound. And then E would be evaluate, and R would be reward.
It could also be a restart if you
I think that's
are
a good point.
doing
I like
something.
restart too.
If
you-
it's like you're building a robot and after evaluating it's not working, you can always restart.
We'll do a whole episode on smart goals, smarter goals. Another principle out of deliberate practice, just to list them off real quick, so we can get some more meat and potatoes in here. Another principle of this is that it requires full engagement and high concentration. So it has to occupy your mind space. And I think that's kind of true in education too, is that you as a teacher kind of are more in the cognitive realm. And
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with it?
Nope.
Why don't you agree with it?
I don't agree with that because that's ultimately not how people learn. We don't learn just by using our brains. We have to actively be involved. And we are more of a kinesthetic type of society than people are willing to really indulge or understand. And seeing that more and more on the administrator side of education, I can go into a classroom and see, half the class is not engaged in the learning. So they're doing other things to occupy their time, like playing on their phones or throwing pencils or picking on someone, because that's at least getting them fully engaged and involved instead of focusing on the notes, supposedly.
Well,
Well, and yeah. Go ahead, Kaylee.
from what I've seen since I go to school, like that sounds weird. But from what I've seen, like sitting in the classroom, it's that like most kids want to be constantly stimulated with their hands and their mind because it gets them to work on the same thing. And if they don't have something to keep them going, keep them doing something, they'll do things like, I don't know, draw on their hands, pants, I don't know.
Well, I think you were talking at some point about making sure you're offering that challenge to keep them engaged, to keep them hooked in.
In the zone of proximal development.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to comment on Kaylee, like you've done really well in the home ec class or the pre-engineering class. And those were very hands-on, active, engaged, things that you can actually apply in the real world, right?
And they both like my favorite learning subject, math. It's just, I get to put that into real practice and not real practice as in a word problem, like I'm actually out there solving that.
Yeah, math word problems are the only place you don't wonder why someone has 30 pumpkins. And it's
Or 52 cabbages.
Or 52 cabbages. Like it totally makes sense why Yolanda has 34 cabbages with 7 kittens.
Yep.
It just makes, it's the only place it makes sense.
It's the only place that cats can actually eat pineapple.
Yep. So talking about the zone of proximal development. So you have, if you imagine a straight line, there will be a buffer zone above it and below it, and that's considered the zone of proximal development. So as a person learns, hopefully it is at like an upward trend. So let's go extreme and say a 45-degree angle upward trend. So maybe 5 clicks above and 5 clicks below. That would be the area where a person could struggle and go down to the easier things and also start challenging up to the higher things without getting overly frustrated or losing interest. And so that's your zone of proximal development, is trying to find that zone where you're engaged and not frustrated, but it's easy enough that you don't feel like giving up.
Okay, so what you're kind of alluding to is talking about how to start using deliberate practice.
It could be. It's just in education, that's the learning zone that you're trying to find if you're a teacher or a coach working with your client, working with students, is trying to find what, like today, Kaylee, you did the mile run, right?
Yes.
So trying to figure out, okay, where are my cross country athletes at, so that they can split you guys into groups and decide, okay, who can run a mile in less than 10 minutes, who's my 10 to 15, who's my 15 to whatever.
Well, yeah, because normally what they do is they split us in two groups when we go on our runs. One group, they're going to take us on a slower, easier route, and the other group, they're going to challenge us more.
Right. And so that's coming up with those tests, coming up with that data to come up with better homogenous groups for learning.
Okay, so coming up with those training areas and things, and that's actually going on to the next point is you need to create a system of immediate and accurate feedback. And that's really important for evaluating the deliberate practice, knowing where to progress, knowing how to progress, when to progress, and also it's also motivating in a way because you can track your progress and seeing how much you've grown. It's kind of like in weightlifting. Like if you start off on your bench press as like 150 pounds and you get up to 200 pounds, that's really reinforcing and really encouraging. Or likewise on, say, like a weight loss program, you get onto that scale and everybody's seen the before and after pictures in the mirror, right? And so like you were saying, Jenny, with the zone of proximal development, you have to get outside of your comfort zone. That's another principle, is you have to be challenged in order to grow.
Well, the zone of proximal development should still be in the comfort zone. However, it's encroaching on not being in the comfort zone. So it's just a little bit above the comfort zone, not to hit the point of frustration. Yeah,
it's not like it's abrasive. It's just a little bit higher to stretch your confidence just a little bit.
It's like towing the line, stepping over it for a minute, and then coming back.
Now, a lot of data about learning and learning processes say that humans learn best through chunking, which is grouping, putting groups of 3 to 4 like type items together and doing all of those things all at once.
Well, that's why phone numbers, credit cards, things like that are broken down into 3 or 4 sets, the groups of numbers, because that's what we can remember, is multiple groups of 3 or 4.
Yeah, and that's just a mnemonic tool that people have found out that people learn better through groups and learning groups of things rather than, one by one by one by one. And it works well for athletics because athletics, your body is an entire connected system. And you can't talk about your driving without talking about the walk-up. You can't talk about the walk-up without talking about loading your hips. You can't talk about loading your hips without talking about balance. So it's all connected.
I totally thought you meant driving as in like in a car. And I was like, your walk-up to the car?
Hey,
wait.
That's the only form of driving I do well. Like, beep, beep, unlock the car.
I'm so confused.
The final principle of deliberate practice is identifying and eliminating mistakes. And we talked about that briefly earlier, using a coach or even a video camera or something to identify and troubleshoot things, essentially. And that's what practice is for. Practice is for identifying your mistakes. And you should not feel like you're doing everything wrong and you're a failure in practice.
Well, that would also go with the mindset of identifying your strengths and maybe even taking away the word weakness and instead have that as an opportunity for improvement. A lot of it does have to do with mindset. So to find those areas of strengths that you don't have to work on so hard, and then the places where you need to practice and improve.
Well, like I had mentioned hip loading earlier, and that's something that I need to work on, as far as my walk-up goes. And I've noticed like I can always stand to improve my hip movement, my hip loading, to improve my distance. I'm not very good at it, but I'm getting better. And I was able to do it starting out, but I've continuously grown and grown and grown and gotten better through identifying it and working on it and slowing things down, breaking it up into chunks and walking myself through that process.
And what data told you that you need to work on your hip, whatever?
Well, it really was, it wasn't so much data, like as far as quantitative data, is more like qualitative, I think, if I'm using the term properly.
That's what I'm asking is what caused you to decide that this is your area for practice? This is your area for focus?
Well, I'm very upper body heavy. I work construction. I have mega upper body strength. My lower body strength is waning, but I've never really had very good hip flexibility and core flexibility. Especially like in my older years where I put on some weight, it's become a real challenge. I know this from playing ball golf for 20, 25 years, is that in order to get the distance on your driving and on your swing, you have to really play from the waist down. And it seems really counterintuitive, but the game is really played from the waist down. And that was something that I was working on when I got out of ball golf, and it was really working for me. And then I watched disc golfers, and I'm thinking, like, I'm a big, strong guy. Why can't I throw 400 feet? What's going on here? This is really kind of stupid. What's going on with my form? What am I doing wrong? These guys, I've always wondered how these people, they go up there and they throw, and they look like they're hardly putting in any effort at all. And it just seems so seamless. And the answer is that it really starts from the waist down. So I started incorporating loading my hips the other way in order to facilitate more power through my swing. And when I watch the long drive videos and things, when they slow things down, you can always notice that these guys, they rotate around their pelvic bone and then they whip around with their shoulders.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
You're going off on a tangent. What made you decide about you that you're going to focus on that?
I wanted to throw further. I wanted to throw further with less effort.
Okay.
And through my experience with ball golf, I knew that it had to do with loading the hips, because disc golf and ball golf are a lot of the same mechanical principles as far as your body goes.
Okay.
And with the loading of the hips, it's kind of like throwing a shot put. You need to use your lower body strength more than you need to use your upper body strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the game is played from the waist down. That's my new motto as of lately, is play the game from the waist down.
Not from the neck up.
No. Well,
Unless it's a math game.
all this stuff in the middle pretty much doesn't matter. Like,
It's either the
kidding.
neck up or the waist
Yeah,
down,
right.
unless you're doing push-ups.
We don't talk about push-ups.
So how do I start using deliberate practice? If I'm out there and I'm a disc golfer, how would I start using the principles of deliberate practice in order to improve my game?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is you need to go out and play and come up with something that you're interested in improving. That's why I asked you about your hips, is what caused you that's where you're going to focus.
These hips don't lie.
Whatever. Shakira. Don't even Kaylee.
No. In researching this, I found some information about how to start using deliberate practice, and I thought it was pretty valuable, so I'll share it with you. Yay. The first thing they say is understand your why. And understand it and know it on a deep and almost spiritual level. Not getting into like any kind of religion thing.
I wouldn't even go there. I wouldn't even touch that.
No, thank you.
What? Your why?
There are so many people that go through sports and life in general and never touch why, because it's so difficult. So even just going there right now, I wouldn't.
I don't know. Your why can change. Your why.
Or you can just feel awful that you never have a good enough why.
I mean, my reason why for cross country is because I want to build up my stamina. That's not really a good reason why.
Or because it's fun and you enjoy it. It doesn't have to. It doesn't
that
have.
much.
It doesn't have to be a big reason. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to solve.
You're saying look at it on a spiritual level, like you need to Buddha this.
No, it's like it's like deep. It's like deep, and that why can change.
But we're saying that we have very superficial whys as to why we do the stuff that we do.
Well,
and so you telling us on a spiritual level, like
Well, no, I'm saying like I play disc golf because I enjoy it. And it doesn't need to be like some super duper Buddha thing, but it's like that's what I feel in my heart
super duper Buddha.
Is that even in that his super duper Buddha. And that's why I play is because I enjoy it. And that's why I practice and I work hard at it is because I enjoy the process. I enjoy every part of it. That may seem superficial, but I feel I feel that in my heart and in my soul. And that's what I really appreciate about the game. So it doesn't need to be like some big life-changing why, but that's where the why is where your motivation comes from. Yes.
with the superficial thing, I know this might be a little long, but we had a visitor in class today, and this person was talking about how
Slow down.
Sorry. This person was talking about how for native spiritual dances, you have to be physically ready, mentally ready, and spiritually ready. And if you're not all three of those, you can't participate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things with song and dance is if kids don't feel like,
Or adults.
Yeah. Well, it's the kids. It's at the school. That's exactly right. If you're not, it's like, so the days for me with disc golf where I already know I'm angry, it's like, I don't want to go out there and throw because I'm already angry and I know it's just going to make it worse.
Yeah. Just disc golf and golf in general, you have to be in the right mindset because the game will tell you how you're feeling that day. It's like a perfect mirror. It's kind of stupid, but it's good, I guess. So, in order to start using deliberate practice, we talked about this. Take your self-inventory and define your goals. We talked about that earlier. Next is commit to a time and routine. And a time and routine is really important because it's on purpose. It's deliberate right in that time. And, a lot of people get to this point where they just don't feel complete until they are able to spend that hour or do whatever that is. And it's important also to realize that doesn't necessarily that you have to be physically involved. Visualization and mental practice is also very important. Like for us lately, we've been watching a lot of the FPO, MPO tournaments and, rehearsing things and talking about different shots and kind of going through the tactics in our head and even together.
I do a lot of disc golf when I'm laying in bed.
The shower thoughts, though, those are bad. I do some good thinking in the shower. Win arguments with myself.
Have you ever solved world hunger?
Tell no one.
So
Solve world hunger.
spend a lot of time, as you're decompressing for the day, especially if we've gone disc golfing. And it's like, well, this doesn't make sense. Like in theory, this should work. And so trying to work through and just a lot of that stuff when you're trying to fall asleep. It's like not even something I could journal and get out of my head. It's like, it's just, I'm working through it. And then I try the theory the next time we go out and it doesn't work at all.
Well, there's nothing like going through your walk up at 1:00 in the morning and all of a sudden the covers are all missing. I think we broke it. It's happened.
What?
I'm serious. It's like, is the window open? No. Jenny's practicing disc golf.
Wait, she's just tossing and turning? What?
I do a lot of that.
Yeah. She does. Yeah. And then it becomes this tug of war, and then she doesn't have any covers, and then she takes the covers back because she doesn't have any, and then I don't have any, so I take them back, and
Why don't you just find another
He
blanket?
ends up with the sheet and I get the comforter.
We've tried the other, and she steals the other blanket too.
Then
I do the same thing.
I think you should go to the couch.
It's mutual. It's a mutual blanket thievery. All right. And so committing to a set time routine where you do that and you go through practice. Apparently Jenny's is in the middle of the bedroom. And she's still laughing.
Actually, I saw this really good thing in Philo's video about lining up what you're gonna throw and then actually slow motion practicing putting your arm over it. And it would be really good, just like he's like, you gotta be ninja ready, and it's like doing the slow jujitsu. So that
I need to see some of these videos. Like it's metaphysical disc golf. It put some crystals and things on the baskets, and
jujitsu,
ninja disc golf.
All right.
You should find some like rocks and make your disc thing out of your disc marker be like epoxy with your special rocks in case.
with my crystals.
Well,
To keep me calm during, I'm going to use one of my little crystal.
Well, I mean, like what you could do is you could get some crystals that are special or not even special, just like the special ones. And you can put them in epoxy and make a little puck out of it, and you could use that as your marker.
Okay.
Yeah, you can make your own markers. They have to be a certain size and stuff. PDGA has got a whole thing for that. Setting up a system for measurable feedback that's collecting that data and all those different things. And then moving on. Now, this is really important, is the zone state. And the dream for any athlete is to be able to move into this zone state at will. And it is a real thing. Psychologists and things, athletes and the way they have researched it and defined it. And also how to get there and move in and out of it. So in the zone is actually a real thing. And in order to be in the zone, you have to go beyond your comfort zone. And I like to point out with your comfort zone is there's a difference between pain and discomfort. Discomfort might not feel very good, but pain makes you have to stop. And that's people get a little uncomfortable. They feel a little bit sore. They're pushing it a little bit and then they quit. That's when you should keep going. If you're pain, that means that you're almost to the point of injury and you should stop. But if you're just a little sore, you got to be able to push yourself through that. If it hurts a little bit, you got to be able to push yourself through that. Because chances are you're just working out something or stretching something that hasn't been stretched in a while.
Or you happen to putt using a muscle you didn't even know you have.
Poor
So,
technique. Yeah.
It's just a one-off. Oops.
Yep.
That game was fun.
Yeah.
Also, to be in the zone state, it's real-time instant feedback. If you notice a pattern here, deliberate practice has a lot to do with feedback. And it also involves something that you were talking about earlier, having optimal stress levels, not being at the point of frustration and anger, but getting to the point where you're challenged and engaged rather than hitting rock bottom and sitting around that boredom level and tuning out.
Well, I want to go back to, what did you just say before that?
Real-time feedback?
Yeah. So with the feedback, if you're in that zone state, sometimes you aren't in a place where you can really collect data. So you need to come up with some way to be able to collect data. So say for the putter league that I'm in, you have a live stream video and you're just in the zone doing your putting. And then after you end your video, you go back and watch it and then count and tally what putts you actually made. Or like when I play disc golf, that's why I use the counter. And I know Corey uses the bus clicker.
Yeah.
And you get into that habit so that you can focus on other things and maintain that level of data collection.
Yeah. You know, everybody nowadays has a phone, and these phones have cameras, and these cameras record videos. And
unless you work for the government, you're not allowed to have one.
Well, and
Yeah.
and most everybody has $10 in their pocket. That thing that you got for your phone, what was that? Like $6-7? It holds the phone for you so you can take video of yourself.
the mount for the
mount,
stand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but they also have the little bitty tripod. I mean, let's just say this: for less than $20, you can get a little tripod thing for your phone, and you can record yourself. And you being your best teacher and having all those tools, applying these principles to those videos, you can become, you can really become your own best coach, honestly. And comparing those as a form of feedback, comparing those to the videos and the feedback that you're getting from, like, say, YouTube, the books, watching the pros, and things of that nature. And so what is zone state? Well, zone state is what we were talking about earlier, where you have the quick access memory, then you go into the long-term memory, long-term storage, and then you move it into the primal or the muscle memory where you just react without thinking about it. And that's what that zone state is where you completely live in that primal brain, that primal headspace. You're not really thinking about what you're doing or anything else. It's just happening and unfolding in front of you. Once you realize that you're in a zone state, you're no longer in a zone state. You automatically pop out of it. And that's how you can tell if you are in a zone state or not, is whether or not that happens. And last but not least, very important, make sure you give yourself adequate rest and recovery time. It allows your muscles to heal physically, your tendons and things to rebuild themselves, but it also allows your brain to create those synapses and things and those connections. Have you ever done the thing where you like do something for a while and you just can't get it, and then you put it down for like a day and you come back to it and it's like, oh, magic, it worked?
Yes, a lot.
Well, can you think of something?
Did you? I thought you had something like this at school with using the Cricut.
Oh, yes. What happened was we kept printing our thing, and it kept printing out with a lot of excess.
Like a 3D printer?
No, so it's vinyl cutter.
Oh, the Cricut. Okay.
Yeah,
the
so
cutter.
we kept printing it, and it kept printing out with way too much excess. So then we realized, so we tried to fix it, but it wouldn't work. So we let it sit for a day, and then the next day, we figured out exactly what was wrong.
Okay, so you came back to it and it was like a light bulb. It's like, oh, duh. You've put a fresh pair of eyes on it and makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good example. So moving on here, a couple things that are in the hopper for the intentional disc golfer. Episodes that are upcoming, we're going to be talking about smarter goals. Also, we're going to be talking about how to defeat the coach talent paradox, where the biases are created between people that experience early success as opposed to people that struggle in the very beginning, and how to make up for that and kind of cheat the system, talking about data points. And we're pretty much going over like the mental kind of psychological and practice regiment part of disc golf right now. We will be eventually getting into talking about things like form, different shot shapes, understanding flight numbers on a deep level. So all of those things are going to be coming up in the future. Anyway, as far as deliberate practice goes, go out, practice deliberately. It's like the statue of liberty. I don't know. Deliberate practice is basically putting a framework in place so that you know when to progress, you know when to move on, and you can keep the ball rolling forward. Otherwise, you're just going to be going through the motions and eventually get stuck, become bored, and not want to progress or not want to move on in disc golf anymore, which we definitely don't want. We want to grow the sport, have as many people playing as possible, develop courses, and turn this into the sport that we all love and know it is. So with that being said, this is the Intentional Disc Golfer. We had special guests James and Kaylee on today, as well as my lovely wife Jenny. She's shaking her head, yes. All right, this is the Intentional Disc Golfer signing off.